NHL panel. We have RotoWire's Paul Bruno and AJ Scholz and NHL.com's Fantasy on Ice host Pete Jensen. The fellas, they're here for NHL opening Faceoff, so we're getting your best DFS plays on tonight's slate.
That's right. We're getting closer and closer to the playoffs here, too. We've got, Colorado, I believe, is the only Western Conference team here, guys, that has clinched a postseason berth. 4 teams have done so in the East, and it looks like the Avalanche could be heading towards their second consecutive President's Trophy right now, man.
Ooh.
It's going to be good. So, yeah, let's look ahead to tonight. There's a lot of games on the slate. It looks like 12 games on the slate.
Ooh, wow.
Favorite center tonight, Paul?
There's a whole bunch of number ones that have really good matchups. I'm fading some of the big boys in favor of these guys that have the lopsided advantages. Look at JT Miller going against Arizona. 11 points and 32 shots on goal his last 10 games played. Stamkos versus Anaheim. Anaheim has packed it in, and Stammer and his team are fighting for playoff positioning, so he'll be ready to pile on them. He's got 13 points in his last 10 games. Sebastian Aho leads the red-hot Carolina club against a very cold Detroit club. He's only coming in at $6,900, maybe the best bet of that bunch. But I think the best bet on the board is Elias Pettersson. The guy is on a roll that's been now 2 months in the making, and nobody's talking about him, despite the fact he continues to do it. 16 points in his last 10 games played, coming in at only $5,800 tonight.
AJ, who you want here at center, man? I mean, Paul nailed it. A lot of ones here, a lot of expensive dudes.
Yeah. For me, I think he's right when he mentioned Sebastian Aho here. Like, obviously, it's hard to make an argument against Matthews or McKinnon, who's coming off that hat trick there. But Aho, 7 goals, 7 assists in his last 12 games. The matchup with the Red Wings is a good opportunity to capitalize on the Canes. And at the end of the day, $6,900 for Aho just gives you so much roster flexibility throughout the rest of your lineup without having to go for the top guys on the board. So for me, I agree with Paul. Aho is the play tonight.
Pete, I know how pricey Auston Matthews is, but he has the most upside of all these players.
It's true. I love what he's doing this season, leading the league in goals. I'm just keeping it simple at center, though. I'm riding the hot hand with Nathan McKinnon. 5-point game, like AJ mentioned. He's doing great playing with Andrei Burakovsky lately. It doesn't matter who's injured, who's not, right? Kadri's injured. Of course, Landeskog's injured. It doesn't matter. This guy is a shots on goal machine. He's got the highest floor, in my opinion, and the highest ceiling as well after a performance like that. He's playing the New Jersey Devils, who are very leaky defensively. They have still not solved that goaltending issue. Last time McKinnon played the Devils, he had 3 points. Wouldn't be surprised if he replicated that or built on it here tonight.
All right, AJ, let's look at the wing. 2 dudes who are going to cost you over $8,000. Ovechkin and Mitch Marner. Are you going to pay up for either of them or save some cash?
I'm going to save some cash here as well, just because there are so many really good options here. Kirill Kaprizov at $7,300 and Matthew Tkachuk at $6,400. Both guys who should be in play for your lineups tonight. Like, after Matthews, he'll probably do it tonight, but after him, these are the next 2 guys who could get to 100 points this year. Tkachuk, fresh off a hat trick against Seattle. He does have the more difficult matchup between the two, facing Vegas, but at $900 cheaper, if I'm picking just one of Kaprizov or Tkachuk, I'll look at Tkachuk here, but I think Kaprizov is definitely in play as well.
All right, Pete, who's in play for you on the wing?
I mean, there's some great prices out there on some of these guys. You could ride the hot hand with Matt Boldy, who I know Anna was hyping up the previous show. That line was awesome for Minnesota, the second line with Gaudreau and Kevin Fiala. Kevin Fiala, great shot volume as well. So, continue to sprinkle those guys into your lineups. I thought it was interesting. I saw that Elias Pettersson, I guess he practiced at wing yesterday. He's actually wing eligible and sub $6,000. I know Paul mentioned him earlier, very favorable matchup. Vancouver, even though they're kind of falling out of this thing, they're still playing really well. They're still pushing, and they're still mathematically alive. So expect Pettersson to keep his thing going. And then, Mark Stone, I feel like nobody's going to be taking him because Vegas is kind of hot and cold. They're this mysterious team right now, but I love Stone playing with his usual line mates in Pacioretty and Stevenson for only $4,000.
All right, Paul, who do you like on the wing?
This show's less fun when AJ and I agree, but I got to go with him on Tkachuk against Vegas. He's become a real emotional leader, and he's focused in a positive direction. So I really like that for him. He comes in at $6,400 after producing 16 points in his last 10 games played, pouring a lot of shots on goal. And I think despite the fact that this game is significant for both clubs, Calgary's just got a little bit too much focus going in their favor, and Tkachuk will lead them. But I look back at a couple of mismatches I highlighted at the center position for two wingers that I'm going to keep an eye on. Of course, Nikita Kucherov, one of the more costly ones at $7,900, but he's been delivering the goods all year long. I think this is another spot where he could pad his stats. But Evgeny Svechnikov is a guy that really catches my eye. 6 points in his last week of play, gets Detroit in what should be a big mismatch in favor of Carolina, and he comes in at $6,500, my best bet at the wing position.
Hey, Pete, let's go back to the blue line here. I know it's a position that a lot of people, AJ, will typically punt on, but, if you're going to spend up, typically want to aim for maybe someone on one of those top power play units who can actually put the biscuit in the basket. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I love aiming for the power play angle, and you don't even necessarily need to spend up to do it. I mean, look at what Torrey Krug did for the St. Louis Blues coming back from injury on first power play. He plays with Justin Falk at even strength. That's one of the best pairs in the NHL this season. And Torrey Krug, multi-point game, 5 shots on goal, 24 DraftKings points in that return from injury against his former team. Now he gets Buffalo. Buffalo is a dangerous team, as always, but, I mean, let's be honest, they could pour it on. The St. Louis Blues can. Buffalo's very inconsistent game to game, as we've seen all season. So, yeah, I think that Krug would be worthy of spending up for $5,500 to $6,000 DraftKings dollars, but he's only $4,200, so he's got to be a lineup lock.
Paul, who's your man in the blue man group tonight?
There's three defensemen I'm focusing on. Falk was one of them, and he has the mismatch against Buffalo, who will return to mere mortal status. They're not playing the Leafs tonight, so that makes Falk a lot more attractive at $5,500. Tony DeAngelo for Carolina has been chugging along consistently, a point producer there, and I'm counting on a big mismatch. He'll be a part of that against Detroit for $5,900. And then Chris Letang, I'm sure AJ's going to mention something about him. I like him tonight, $6,300, 9 points in the last 10 games. Pouring in a lot of shots on goal and typically leading the Pittsburgh offense. They need to get off the schneid tonight, and I think they will.
Okay, AJ, it's your time to shine, big boy.
Look, I'm not touching the Penguins right now. I'm still fed up with this team, but that's a completely different issue. For me, I think it is a pay-up night, and I look at Cale Makar here, $7,900. It's a hefty price tag. But you look at the month of April, he's got 22 shots. That's second most of anybody. Any defenseman. It's tied, in fact, with the aforementioned Chris Letang. But Makar has 6 points this month as well, compared to just 3 for Letang. I think he's really in play. I liked and would have probably taken Justin Falk and stuck with him, but with Torrey Krug back, we saw Falk not get any points in that last game. And so I think it lowers the value for Falk, especially at $5,500. So I love Pete's call as switching over to Torrey Krug between those two, given the price range. So I would go Krug on one side, Cale Makar on the other.
All right, Paul, hit us with your favorite value play on tonight's massive slate.
You know what? I'm going to go to a couple of teams we haven't really mentioned much. Fiala for Minnesota against Dallas. $4,900 for him. He's been leading this team in stretches during the course of the season, and he's going through a nice stretch right now with 9 points in his last 10 games played. So that's a low price for him. Jake DeBrusk really fitting in. He must think he's died and gone to heaven, playing on the number one line in Boston. His offensive totals have taken off in that stretch. 7 goals his last 10 games played. And then Evgeny Dadonov playing with Jack Eichel has found the mother lode there too. 6 goals, 13 points in his last 10 starts. On defense, there's a couple of value plays, too, that I'll mention. Noah Hannafin playing very, very well for Calgary, producing at both ends with block shots, shots on goal, and scoring. So he's averaged 12 DK points per game in his last 10 and costs only $3,900. Finally, Jared Spurgeon, a power play quarterback in many. For $4,500, you get a guy who's got 9 points and 14 blocks for an average of 10.9 DK points in that lineup.
All right, AJ, where are you going for value?
Well, Seth Jarvis for the Hurricanes had a rough February, but since returning from a 3-game absence in mid-March has racked up 13 points in his last 14 contests. He's on that top line with Sebastian Aho, which gives you a nice stack option there. He's super cheap when you consider that. So it allows you to use Aho and Jarvis in tandem together. He's been playing really well. And again, we've talked about the matchup with the Red Wings being a juicy one for Carolina.
All right, Pete, hit us with some value, please.
I really like Tim Stützle. The guy's having a breakout season after being a high pick a couple years ago in 2020. I mean, look at what this guy has done over his past 18 games. 20 points, 11 on the power play. He's playing on that first unit, and he's got 41 shots on goal in the span. So Tim Stützle, regardless of matchup, regardless of lineup placement, is looking like a steal at number 3 for the Senators. And now they have Batherson back. They got their offensive weapons, at least in the forward group. So I think that they're one of the top spoiler teams any given night, you know, fantasy-wise or anything else you're doing out there. I do think that Stützle has hidden value because his price is still really cheap.